Okay, I want to try a quick word association game with you.
Oh, I like this.
Okay, if I say the word apocalypse, what's the very first image that flashes into your mind? Be honest.
Oh, I know exactly where my brain goes. It's Hollywood. It's big budget CGI,
Right.
fire raining from the sky, skyscrapers toppling over, maybe some uh, zombies running around.
Exactly. We are all conditioned to think of the end times as this singular, terrifying event on the calendar where everything just blows up. It's fear, it's destruction, the end of the line.
Yeah.
But today we're doing a deep dive into a text that claims that entire mental image is not just wrong, it's actually a distraction.
It's a massive distraction. And the source we have today is really going to challenge some standard assumptions. It's a text titled The Day of Yahuah, the End of Adversarial Rule.
The end of adversarial rule. That sounds intense.
It is intense, but not the way you might think. This text argues that the Day of Yahuah isn't about the physical destruction of the planet.
No meteors.
No meteors. It's about revealing.
Yeah.
It's about the uncomfortable, messy process of the truth coming out.
Which, if we're being honest, can feel just as scary as a meteor sometimes.
Oh, absolutely.
Ah.
But the premise here is fascinating. The text takes these ancient biblical archetypes, figures like Cain, Esau, and even the historical Roman Empire, and it completely reinterprets them.
Okay.
It stops looking at them just as, history book characters and starts treating them as psychological states.
Ways of being. I love that phrasing in the notes.
Yes.
It suggests these aren't just people who lived and died thousands of years ago. They're like operating systems that are running the world right now.
Precisely. The mission for this deep dive is to unpack how this text deconstructs the idea of adversarial rule. It redefines what Satan actually is. And trust me, the definition in here is a huge curveball.
Oh, I'm ready.
And it makes this compelling argument. The judgment is actually about the exposure of illusion, not, the annihilation of people.
It's heavy stuff, but man, is it fascinating. There was one line in the intro that hooked me immediately. I haven't been able to stop thinking about it.
Which one?
It said, Cain builds Rome.
Yeah, that's a stopper.
We're going to get to that, but just the idea that a biblical character is the architect of an entire imperial system.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Okay, so to understand that, we have to start with the definition of the event itself. The text references Obadiah, for the day of Yahuah is near upon all the nations.
And usually when people hear that, they check their emergency supply kits.
Right. Canned beans and bunkers.
Exactly.
But the source clarifies that this nearness isn't about a countdown clock to an explosion. It defines the event as the moment when hidden systems lose their authority.
Why?
Because their lies are exposed.
So the collapse isn't, walls literally falling down, at least not at first. The collapse is the truth just getting out.
Yes.
It's like turning on the lights at a party that's gone on way too long. That's a great analogy. The mechanism of collapse is truth. I mean, if you look at the etymology of the word apocalypse, it just means an unveiling, a lifting of the hood.
Right.
And the text leans heavily on John 12:31. Now is the judgment of this world. Now the ruler of this world shall be cast out.
And this is where we have to talk about the ruler of this world, because usually people picture a red guy with horns and a pitchfork.
Right. The cartoon villain.
But the source material is very specific here. It says this casting down isn't the fall of some horned being.
No. It describes it as the dismantling of an order, an adversarial order. The text defines this order as basically a psychological operating system.
Okay.
It rules through accusation, trauma, envy, and death.
So when we talk about the day of Yahuah, we aren't talking about the earth burning up. We're talking about the moment when that way of operating accusation and trauma, it just stops working. It loses its power.
Which brings us to the first big archetype the text uses to explain this system, Cain.
Now, most people know the story. Cain and Abel, two brothers. Cain gets jealous. Cain kills his brother. The original murder mystery.
But the text says Cain is not merely a man. Cain is a way of being.
This is a crucial distinction. The text isn't interested in Cain as just a historical person. It's interested in the Cain mentality.
Yes, the mindset. It describes Cain as the one who offers without love, works without faith, and envies the one whose offering comes from trust.
It's the psychology of going through the motions, right?
Yeah.
Doing the right thing on the outside, checking the boxes, but being totally hollow or even resentful inside.
Exactly. And getting angry when that hollowness doesn't get you the results you think you deserve.
Right.
There's that quote from Genesis, sin is crouching at the door, but you must rule over it. The text argues Cain's fundamental failure wasn't the murder itself, that was just the result. The failure was that he refused to rule his spirit.
He couldn't control his own internal state. He let the envy drive the bus.
And because he refused to rule his internal world, he felt compelled to control the external world. He kills the witness, Abel.
Kills the person who reminds him of his own lack of faith.
Right. But here's where it gets really interesting. The text connects this psychological failure to the creation of civilization itself.
This is the Cain builds Rome part.
Yes. It says, and I'm quoting here, Cain builds cities, Cain builds economies, Cain builds religions without repentance, Cain builds Rome.
Wow, that is such a bold claim. It's suggesting that the entire concept of empire, cities, economies, these huge structures, is rooted in that initial refusal to deal with your own internal stuff.
That's the argument. It represents a world built on Satan, and we'll define that word in a second. But here it's defined as opposition, not ownership. Cain opposes. He can't master himself, so he builds systems to master others. That's the spirit of Rome.
It's a projection.
A projection of internal chaos into external order.
It makes you look at skyscrapers and walled cities differently. Like, are these monuments to greatness or are they monuments to insecurity? I can't control my fear, so I'll build a giant wall.
Fear is the foundation. Cain builds walls because he's afraid.
Okay, so if Cain is the guy who actively builds these oppressive systems out of that hot, angry energy, what about the other archetype, Esau? The text contrasts them pretty sharply.
Esau is a different kind of tragedy. If Cain is active malice, active envy, Esau is, well, apathy.
Right.
The text argues Esau isn't condemned for sinning in the classic sense. He's tragic because he despised the birthright.
He sold it for a bowl of soup, for one morsel of food, as the text puts it.
Right. But think about what that means. He traded a long-term spiritual reality, a legacy, for an immediate sensory hit.
And the source makes a really nuanced point here. It says Esau loses sensitivity, not his humanity. He loses conviction.
Exactly. It compares him to Jacob. And Jacob, well, Jacob isn't exactly a saint in the story.
Oh, Jacob is a mess. He's a trickster, a liar.
He is. But the text says Jacob still feels. Jacob still weeps. Jacob still wrestles.
That's a powerful distinction. Jacob is struggling, maybe failing, but he's alive to that spiritual reality. Esau just stops caring. He becomes numb.
Precisely. The loss of feeling. In a world that is constantly distracting us, constantly offering us that bowl of soup.
The streaming services, the endless scrolling, comfort food.
Just checking out. Esau is the danger of drifting to sleep.
But, and this connects back to the nature of judgment we talked about at the start, the text offers hope even for Esau.
It does. It says, even Esau carries a mustard seed that may yet be harvested.
Because Yahuah does not discard his creation.
Yes. And this is key to the text's whole view of the apocalypse. Judgment in this view isn't about throwing people in the trash. It's about exposure and correction.
It's about waking Esau up.
Waking him up from his numbness and, at the same time, breaking the systems Cain built so that the people trapped inside can be free.
Which leads us directly into the biggest redefinition in this entire text. We've touched on it, but we need to dive in. The text has a section called The World Under Satan's Rule, but it doesn't describe a war between two gods.
No, and this is a critical theological and philosophical pivot the source makes. It states it bluntly. Satan is not a god. Satan is not a rival. Satan is a function.
A function. That feels so much more mechanical, or maybe systemic.
It's linguistic. The text uses the Hebrew definition. Satan just means adversary, accuser, or obstructor.
So it's a job title.
It's a role, like a prosecutor in a court. It's not necessarily describing a sovereign being. The text says that wherever accusation replaces love, or wherever trauma is weaponized, there the Satan function is ruling.
So it's not about a guy in a red suit on a throne. It's about a dynamic that happens between people. When I accuse you instead of loving you, I'm operating in that Satan function.
Exactly. You're activating the function of the adversary. And the text points out the ultimate lie of this function. We often hear about the God of this world, implying the adversary owns the place. But the source reminds us of Psalm 24. The earth is Yahuah's and the fullness thereof. The adversary never owned the earth.
That's a huge relief, honestly.
Right.
The idea that the bad guys are legitimately in charge is terrifying. But the text says, what is falling today is not the earth. It is the lie of authority.
The lie of authority. That is the key phrase. Think of it like a squatter in a house. The squatter acts like they own it. They might even change the locks, but they don't hold the deed.
The system, Rome, Cain, the accuser, only rules because we believe it has the right to.
Exactly.
And the day of Yahuah is the landlord coming back and showing everyone the deed.
It's the day we realize the adversary never had the right to rule us in the first place.
And according to the source, that realization isn't something we're waiting for in the distant future. It says the turning point already happened at the cross.
This is the section on the disarming. The text references Colossians. He disarmed the rulers and authorities. But it highlights the Greek definition of disarmed.
Which is stripped naked.
Stripped naked. It's a public shaming. The text argues that the cross wasn't just a sacrifice. It was the moment the masks were removed.
Okay.
The illusion of control that the Cain system held was shattered.
Yeah.
The system did its absolute worst. It killed the innocent son, and it failed. He came back.
I love the visual metaphor the text uses here. It says what we're seeing now, the chaos in governments, economies, these empires failing. It's not the beginning of the end.
No.
It's the aftershock of the cross.
That's a profound way to look at history. It implies the battle is technically over. The structural integrity of Rome, of the adversarial system, was compromised 2,000 years ago. We are just living through the slow-motion collapse of a building that has already been demolished at the foundation.
Rome is falling again. Cain is being revealed. The accuser is losing his voice. It really reframes how you look at the news, doesn't it?
It does.
Instead of thinking, oh no, everything is falling apart, you think, oh look, the lies are being exposed.
It changes fear into observation. It changes panic into patience. But we have to address the nature of the one doing the exposing. Because the text, it doesn't shy away from a very intense image of the Creator. It calls Yahuah a man of war.
Yeah, that stopped me on my tracks. Exodus 15.3, Yahuah is a man of war. And then that really difficult verse from Isaiah. I form the light and create darkness. I make peace and create calamity.
A lot of people struggle with that verse. How can a good creator create calamity? Isn't that what the bad guy does?
Right. It sounds like he's the source of evil.
But the text offers a perspective on this. It says Yahuah went to war when he created the universe.
Yeah.
Think about Genesis 1.
War against what?
Against nothingness.
Yeah.
Against chaos. The text frames creation itself, splitting atoms, stretching out the heavens, separating the waters, as an act of aggressive order. It says this is not chaos. This is order through judgment.
So judgment isn't just punishment. Judgment is the act of putting things in their right place, separating light from dark.
Exactly. And sometimes, for order to be restored, the disorder has to be aggressively dismantled. That is the calamity for the systems of Cain. It feels like destruction to the lie, but it's liberation for the truth.
So if you're clinging to the lie, the truth feels like a weapon.
Perfectly put. If your house is built on sand, the rain feels like an attack. If your house is built on rock, the rain is just weather.
And standing right in the middle of this war, between the judgment and the creation, is the son, Yahushua. The source has a really interesting take on his role. It says he didn't escape the system.
No, he didn't float above it. The text says he passed through it without becoming it.
That's the model.
That's the model the text presents. It references Hebrews, saying he learned obedience through what he suffered.
It lists all these parallels. He was betrayed like Joseph, murdered like Abel, anointed before he was crowned like David. But unlike Cain, who killed the witness, Yahushua became the witness.
And unlike Esau, he didn't despise the birthright. He held on to it through all that suffering. And the text describes his return not as the suffering servant this time, but as the king priest, like Melchizedek.
Melchizedek, that's another deep cut. Why that specific figure?
Well, Melchizedek is unique because he represents the union of peace and righteousness. The text argues this is the absolute antithesis of the Cain system. Cain rules through force and envy. The son rules through obedience and love.
A different kind of authority.
One that doesn't need to shout to be heard.
And that brings us to the ultimate definition of deliverance in this text. We started by saying it's not about the end of the world. So what is deliverance?
The text says, deliverance is not the destruction of beings. It is the end of accusation within the heart.
Wow, that is so personal. It takes this huge cosmic day of Yahuah and puts it right inside your own chest. When accusation ends, Cain has no power.
When love governs, Satan has no ground. It's arguing that the real battlefield is internal. If you stop accusing, the accuser has nowhere to land. If you stop envying, Cain cannot build his city in your heart.
And if you stop fearing, Rome collapses. Because Rome runs on fear.
Exactly. So the text ends with a very direct call to action.
Yeah.
It's not build a bunker or buy gold. It's choose Abel, choose Jacob, choose the son.
Rule your spirit. Transform trauma, refuse accusation. I mean, it sounds simple, but think about how hard that is in the heat of the moment.
Oh, it's the hardest thing.
When someone wrongs you, the instinct is to be Cain, to strike back, or to be Esau and just numb out.
It is the hardest thing to do. It counters every survival instinct we have.
Mm.
But the source argues it's the only way to actually end adversarial rule.
Yeah.
You can't fight the system with the system's weapons.
You can't fight Cain by becoming a better murderer.
You have to step out of the Satan function entirely.
This brings us right back to that first idea. The apocalypse isn't coming. It's revealing.
Yes. The text closes with that thought. The day of Yahuah is not coming. It is revealing. It suggests that the light is just. It's getting brighter, and everything hidden is becoming visible.
It really forces you to ask a question, doesn't it? If the end isn't a date on the calendar, but a state of exposure, what is currently being exposed in your own life?
That's the scary and liberating part. What systems, what Cain-like tendencies or Esau-like numbness are falling apart in your life right now, simply because you're finally seeing them for what they are.
Maybe that calamity you're feeling isn't the end of the world. Maybe it's just the end of the lie.
And the beginning of something real.
That is a lot to chew on. We hope this deep dive gave you a new lens to look at these ancient texts and maybe your own life. Thanks for listening.
Keep seeking.